Hey family, Dr. Dorsey here, and welcome to Next Level Conversations, where we don't just talk about growth, we ignite it. Every time we get together, we dive into transformative insights, breakthrough strategies, and high impact wisdom designed to elevate your mindset, sharpen your leadership, improve your fitness and wellness, and of course, fuel your success. So whether you're here to level up in business, relationships, get more fit, get well, heal, personal mastery, or anything that you're focusing on, you're in the right place. Here is my promise to you. Promise to maximize your time. Promise to encourage you to take action. Promise you to focus on growth, and I promise you to be in the moment. I need you to make the same promise to yourself. We are here to help you get to the next level. So let's get into it. What's good with it, family? Welcome back to another episode of Next Level Conversations, where we inspire men, share stories, and unlock potential. This is the premier male growth podcast, and I promise you, you have tuned in to the right place at the right time. Got somebody really special that I get to tap in with today. I have known him for nearly 2 decades. I've watched him move from contributing through music and through art to climbing into influence and intellect. I've gotten to watch him stand and communicate with authority on issues that matter and that impact the African American community and the African diaspora. Even more than that, I've gotten to watch him make some adjustments to his wellness and his fitness lifestyle that all of us can certainly admire. It's my pleasure to bring up to the stage the man who continues to just knock down generational barriers so that people can see themselves as they should. Come on, y'all help me welcome to the stage the one and only Taharka Anderson. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's good?
What's the deal, man?
Listen, man, how are you doing, man? You doing good?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good for the most part. My wrist has been bugging me a little bit, but emotionally and mentally, I'm in a really good place in my life. I'm really enjoying life these days, even though life comes with its, challenges. For the most part, I'll be feeling good, and I'm happy to say I'll be feeling good and getting my 8 hours of sleep.
You
Yeah,
get 8 hours?
close to it. Yeah, look. These days, I'm gonna get my sleep. Yeah.
You say if I don't get nothing, these sleep hours, they gonna get that. They gonna get that good
Absolutely.
work, man. Yeah, man. Please say hello to people who've never met you and share with them just a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So what's good, everybody? I'm Taharka Anderson. I was born in Georgia, but raised in Long Beach, California, since the 3rd grade, by my parents, Adisa Michael Anderson, and my late mother, Sakara Ingrid Thomas Anderson. I was raised in a politically conscious family, so I always knew who I was as an African and as a Black person in the world. And I always knew that I had a responsibility to my community. And so, in various ways, I stayed true to that commitment and responsibility. Outside of that, most of my professional and work experience has been with young people in schools throughout the state of California, whether that's through tutoring or helping to support them in navigating school so they're not suspended or expelled for unnecessary things. And then in addition to that, I have a decent amount of educational experience. I have a bachelor's degree in sociology, a master's degree in the social and cultural analysis of education, both from Cal State Long Beach. And now I am a 5th-year Ph.D. candidate at the University of Texas at Austin in the African and African Diaspora Studies program. I'll be graduating next year. And so I do a little bit of everything, scholar, educator, organizer, and some people would say I may be becoming a fitness influencer in my own right. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, bro. Wow. I've told you how much I admire you. I'll tell you while people are watching. And I want to encourage you guys to connect with King Taharka, one of the most brilliant men, one of the most committed men. Quietly, the ground shakes when he walks in. And it is when you really know how to manage the responsibility that comes along with self-awareness that people who know elevate you to the level of honor that you deserve before you ever say a word and before you contribute. I know you're going to contribute today, but I salute to you, super proud of you, and grateful to be connected to you.
Appreciate
it. I want to really sort of get on the underside of a lot of the things that you and I both can boast about. And I want to talk to some brothers, man. I think sometimes they don't know some of the real conversations and stories behind where we are today. And so I want to dig in right there.
Yeah.
You're an avid reader. And if I asked you, like, when you felt like, because you read a lot, you read a whole lot. Like, I know you got a library. I know there are books, and you challenge me to make sure that reading is just a part of it's normal to see me with a book in my hand. Why is that so important?
You know, I think for me, what reading did and what it does is it helps me properly understand, or more efficiently understand, how the world operates around me. I think it's very easy for us. We normally, as humans, um, we tend to make sense of things from our own personal experience, but that personal experience and personal interpretation of stuff around us, whether it's family dynamics or what's happening in the community or world, if we're only looking at it based on our understanding, allows me to consider other perspectives and understandings of things. It also helps me connect dots that I may not have been able to on my own. And so, yeah, it just helps me have a more well-rounded way of understanding things that I'm wrestling with. And I think that's very important uh, for those of us who use social media and sometimes see how people engage with one another on social media. Not typically, but oftentimes I find people arguing past each other simply because they don't have the humility or desire and willingness to consider an alternative perspective. And so for me, yeah, reading just keeps me humble, and it reminds me there's always more to learn and there's always additional perspectives to consider. And so it just opens up my analysis and understanding of the world.
It sounds like reading has an element of self-care to it. Like, it does something for you. So for guys who are like, yo, I be trying to look for ways to do things that'll care about me. Are you saying that reading, or does reading, I know it does for me. So does reading do that for you? Like the way it does for me? Because I'm reading, I'm like, man, this is bigger than just the information. It also, it gives me physiological return. It gives me, gives me other things. Does that happen for you?
Yeah, I would say, as a man in particular, and as a human being, but I'm a man, and so I'll speak from that standpoint.
Sure.
I would say being well read as a man gives me an authentic sense of confidence in what I know, right?
So good.
And so, since I know what I know, when I'm hearing conversations or I'm in space with people, um, I don't have to force my positions onto people. If anything, I just pose critical questions to see how other people are thinking about a particular topic. And if the moment arises, I'm more than willing to give my 2 cents. Um, but I'm clear on what I'm an expert in. And so it just gives me a certain level of authentic confidence, which allows me to be in spaces. And even though I know a lot, I play the background and I'm very humble about my knowledge. Um, because I'm clear that I don't have to be in a space and convince people or convince myself that I'm intelligent or that I'm an expert on some things. I know what I'm an expert on. And so, yeah, it allows me, I think sometimes um, we're socialized to believe that manhood and masculinity is very boastful and is very loud and is very domineering. But the model that I received from my father is that he was oftentimes one of the brightest people in spaces, but was very humble, and he wouldn't speak often, but when he would speak or when he would pose a question, it would shake up the entire discussion. And so with that being my model and example of what it looks like to be a deep individual, but still have humility, and still be willing to learn from and listen to other people. I basically incorporate that into my own life. And for me, reading, it does me learning makes me feel good,
Mm.
right? I'm sure there's actual research that talks about, they say like as you get older, like typically, like, once you get to a certain point, your brain is beginning to shut down in different aspects, right? And so they may tell people as you get older, even if you're doing a crossword puzzle or going to learn a new activity, it keeps your brain functioning and not just dying. And your brain is directly connected to your body and how it functions. And so, me learning something new, I feel like I'm recharging my battery.
Mm.
And when I'm not learning, I actually do feel like I'm kinda dying inside,
So
and
good,
so,
bro.
yeah, it does have a actual impact on, you know, um, how I actually feel spiritually and emotionally.
Yeah, bro. Like that's so deep, man. Um, I'm just gonna sort of chew on that for a second, man, because at the at the highest and most surface level, reading is another positive way to spend your time. Like, bro, and I'm about to shift it. And this is something that is in the undertone of what you're saying, because it takes time to read, right? You got to be intentional. You can't be multitasking when you read. And if you can, please tell me how you do it. If you're going to read for comprehension, you're going to read for learning, you have to give your attention to it. So it's another way to redirect your energy.
Mhm.
Um, if you can't read with a whole bunch of stuff in the background, you have to relocate and you have to be intentional about where you're sitting. You got to make the choice about what you're reading. All of these things, brothers, are good choices about what to do with your time, right? We be trying to find ways to productively spend our time. And to argue, we had to go down the list. There's a lot of choices that we make that don't have good return. You feel
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
And so reading keeps you from certain things. I'm gonna shift to fitness because that's a good segue. But I'm just saying, like, underneath all of that, and that's why I appreciate it. So for me, and I've never told anybody this, I can actually properly audit my wellness based on how much time I'm spending reading.
Mm,
You feel me? Like, I'm like, when's the last time I sat down and read?
yeah.
And it allows me to slow the world down, to reassess my priorities, to take inventory of what my conversation is about. When I was doing my dissertation, one of the people who I depended on for some perspective was a man named Dr. Thomas Parham. Thomas Parham, I was sitting there, and I think I was probably 3 months into my dissertation process. And I finished my comps, and he said, just remember, because I told him I was hitting the wall. If you're ever doing your dissertation, you got to hit a wall at some point, okay? It's like, it's right here. Did my camera just go off?
Yeah, I was gonna say something, but I didn't know if I could say something.
That's wild. Hold on, I can fix it. Why did that? That's insane. That's okay though. Thank God for editing. All right, are we back? Did it freeze?
It's frozen right now.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna fix it.
No problem.
I'm gonna be right back. You know, technology, the way it be set up sometimes. All right, we back. We should be back. That's wild. I
can't see you yet.
Yeah, I'm coming back.
Okay.
I must have been in the vein. Okay. I must have been in the vein. Did you hear everything I said though?
Yes.
Okay, so it was just a video.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. Are we back?
Yes.
Sure. Listen, so I feel like reading is one of the ways that keeps me honest about my wellness. When I was doing my dissertation, he said, because when you do a dissertation, you hit a wall.
Yes.
He said,
I might be there.
Well, he said, you don't have nothing to say because you haven't read anything. And it messed me up, man, because, I had to go deeper into the research and be comfortable reading, not for the purposes of writing, but just for the purposes of reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just taking it in without any understanding about how I would use it. So to make my focus not the writing, but the reading. And what that forced me to do, is manage my time better.
Mm-hmm.
And bro, I would spend 10 hours in a room.
Yeah.
Reading, right?
Yeah.
This little small room had a little whiteboard, had stacks of papers. That must seem hopeless at some point, okay? But he messed me up because I had to hear from somebody who's already done it.
Yeah.
And what began to happen is I started adding to my reading muscle. I started becoming more comfortable with my writing muscle.
Mm.
My writing muscle was atrophied because I had exhausted everything because I had never read like that before. And so there's some real, like, for the fellows who are watching, in order to really understand the impact of reading, you have to be patient with yourself while your reading muscle develops, because everybody don't have that muscle, right?
Yeah.
Taharka got mad. We're getting into the fitness. I promise you it's coming. He got that mad reading muscle. And so as a consequence, when you approach a book, there's nothing intimidating about it.
Yeah. But there is something I think is important for me to lift up, to contextualize this, and for the brothers watching. When I was a child, I always struggled with reading comprehension, right? And so I remember when I was going to school in Georgia, I didn't know what class I was being taken to and I've only reflected upon this like in the last 2 years. When
Mhm.
I was a child, it was probably like kindergarten or 1st grade. They would take me out of my regular class and I
Mm,
would go to another class and sit at a table with probably like 5 or only 6 kids. And
mm,
this my teacher's name, I'll never forget it. Her name was Miss Janicopoulos.
mhm,
And we would read, and then they would send us home with these big books with big letters in like a large, like clear gallon sandwich bag. I was
mm,
recently talking to a friend who's a teacher right now, and she said I was being taken to like a class because you were underperforming
mm,
in at that age what you should have been able to do in terms of like your command of like the English language or reading. And that was like 1st grade or so. And I
wow.
remember through elementary and middle school when we would take those like standardized tests,
Mhm,
I could do good on like, if it's synonyms and things like that, but if it required us to read a story that's like 5 or 6 pages long and then answer questions at the end, I couldn't my ability to recall information and summarizing things was not good, and so I always got marked down on reading comprehension. Now, the thing that I think was good is I was never told by my parents, even if they may have thought I had some kind of disability or deficiency, um, I never heard that from my parents. The main thing I always heard from my parents, and particularly my dad, was that, well, reading and learning any subject, whether it's English or whether it's science or what have you, we just have to figure out how you learn best. Right? And so I think that's similar to today. Some people will say, like, we need to rethink about how we think about disabilities and think about it as just being another way in which somebody's body or brain functions, right? And to not approach it as only a deficiency of that human being. And so I think as a result of my dad approaching whatever my limitations may have been from a place of, well, we just got to crack the code. We just got to figure out what the code is. And subsequently, as I got older, my grades continually got better. I always knew, I think this is the key. I always knew I was capable of figuring it out. It may have taken longer than some of the other students, but I always knew I had the capacity and I was just going to have to work harder. And so having worked harder, for so long and reading more, like you said, I read more because my dad would always say, well, if you want to be a better writer, you have to be able to read more. I always sucked at time writing as well. But my dad would just say, you just got to keep trying at it. You have to keep trying at it. And I also fortunately had those additional supports over my educational career to improve, my skills. And so I just wanted to lift that up so that people understand I didn't start out as no genius or prodigy. No, I struggled in various kinds of ways, but with the proper supports. Because I also don't want men to think sometimes we make this an individualistic thing. And we tell men, if you weren't able to accomplish A, B, and C, it is your fault. No, as a sociologist, from my bachelor's degree, I always have to lift up there are ways in which our education system is structured in particular ways so that particular students and populations do not receive the necessary help they need in order to even be an adult and be comfortable with reading. On top of that, and this is the last thing I'll say and I'll be gone. On top of that, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that you and I are in different class positions right now, right? You and I are talking about the difficulties of completing a PhD, right? I understand if I was working 40, 50, 60 grueling hours as a longshoreman or something like that, or if I'm a trucker or in a trade, that I take into consideration how your class standing, how your family situation, and how your work responsibilities will also impact the amount of time you have to dedicate to reading, in addition to what your educational experiences have been in K through 12 or beyond.
Bars. That's so good. That's so good, bro. And thank you for sharing that story. Uh, if that resonates with you, you should probably leave a comment, but it resonates with me too. Me and my brother, my family upbringing was not the same as yours, right? My father was not around during my childhood. And I talk about that a lot. You know that well. And while I honor him today, I don't have references of his fatherly push that I can depend on. I do have other references. I was surrounded by village for sure.
Yeah.
And so I benefited from that. But I resonate with how you spoke to my journey as a reader, as a writer,
Yeah.
as a practitioner, and even as a scholar, right? Which are two different things. Like even when you're talking about the trades in their field, particularly the ones who have arrived at a level of competency, their practitioner skill is their PhD. Do you understand? Like
Yeah.
they understand it at sometimes in ways that theorists and studies would not even reveal. But since the systems that we use to assess their value
Right.
are limited to labor and does not peek into the intellect that it takes to even execute the labor.
Mm,
You understand what I'm saying? Like we
yeah.
can't see it. So I want to honor that and what you're saying. I also want to just pause and say, because they're grown men who still have insecurity about their skills,
Yeah. Yeah.
their ability to read, their ability to have what people consider to be articulate or intellectual conversations. Like
Right. Right.
these are major insecurities. And so while it is that you might come into the space and intentionally and strategically and through humility and through just reading the room and knowledge of the space, you might fade and strategically contribute or just study the space. There are some men who come to space and they're just terrified to be
Yeah.
asked a question,
Yeah.
right? And so they actually can sit in the same room with you and look like they're doing the same thing as you. But the reasons why they're doing it are connected to they don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot to contribute. I'll tell you a quick story. I'm doing these men's events, which I got to get you to.
Yeah.
But me and my brother weren't close. You have an older brother, so me and you, we the younger brother, older brother, and that's no shade, but having an older brother is a gift, and ... Okay, and
Yeah.
both of you are significantly accomplished, and shouts out to him because even without him being who he was, I wouldn't get the benefit to be connected to you,
Yeah.
and that I am. So salute to you, Adisa. But what I was trying to get at, lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? I was trying to suggest. Oh yeah, reading. Oh, so I'll tell you a story about. I was in a room with some men and doing this work with fathers, and my brother is in the room. My brother's trajectory and set of accomplishments is distinct from mine.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way. And unfortunately, sometimes our family would use that and weaponize it. That's not cool.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. We had to do some real work in our adult life for me
Mm,
to tell him I didn't think the way they thought. That was them. That wasn't me. I was just trying to live, right? you understand what I'm saying? Like sometimes family be like, why can't you do this? Anyways. So I'm well versed in communicating publicly because that's just what I've had to do. It's what I've chosen to do. It's a gift of mine. So we're in the space and we're getting ready to close the program. And to honor and salute and to dignify, I give him the stage. And the reason why I'm saying this to you is I want to know what springs up for you. Because I felt like it was mandatory that if I'm telling a story that ties both of us together, i.e. the story of my father and my brother's a junior, okay? So that I give him the stage to speak as well, even though he does not like to speak. And even speaking is not necessarily his thing. And even when he was speaking, it wasn't the way I would speak, but it doesn't have to be, right? So for me, to the brothers who are watching, who have insecurities in these spaces, I'm just suggesting what springs up for me from what you're saying, Taharka, is that's not license to disappear in the room, right? That's not permission for you to devalue yourself like you have nothing to contribute. We can't do that because your presence is valuable and your voice, regardless of how tattered, how unique it is to you, how appropriate it is to your space where you spend most of the time. So I'm interested in what's popping up for you when I talk through that. And, we'll switch up, but I think this is really important.
Yeah, I think sometimes, particularly for those who have more formal education than other people, I think sometimes we look down upon them. I think Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who wrote The Miseducation of the Negro, he talks about how many of us who go through formal schooling, the longer we're in formal schooling, the more deficit and dehumanizing beliefs we have about our own people and our own communities. And so I think sometimes we're in spaces, those of us who have college education, the Black men who frequent the barber shops, right? The Black men who are the football coaches, the Black men who may work at your local restaurant. I think we sometimes devalue their ability to have something useful and productive to contribute to conversation. And there's so many rich things. And actually, as a result of sometimes their closer proximity to suffering in a particular, like me, I'm in a PhD program, right? We'll edit. No, you're fine. No, you're fine. I'll see you Thursday. For let me see. Right, for me, I'm in a PhD program, right? Wait, where was I going with that?
You were saying the closer proximity we are to people.
Right. Okay. So, for example, right, me, not only am I in a PhD program now, I would say I grew up not white people's middle class, but Black people middle class, right? Those who, so it's like a in between of like my parents, we own where we stay, but sometimes I'm still sleeping at grandma's house, or we still don't got the money for me to go to the most expensive college. I could go to college and they could financially support me, but let a major medical illness hit two of us, right? That may make some things shake up just a little bit, but still, I recognize that there's certain types of economic precarity that I didn't have to deal with. And there's certain things, or like, for example, sometimes people will say, you have to be a mastermind to survive in poverty, right? Because you have to calculate out of this paycheck which portions of which bills I'm gonna pay and what order am I going to put them in and things like that. Or even if it's just navigating different dynamics in a community, where there's different politics that you have to be aware of, or even just being a human being. As a result of the conditions that you have to live under, there's certain things that you're going to know and think about. That doesn't necessarily mean you're the expert on it, but it means that regardless of the circumstance, you have some knowledge or something to contribute to a conversation. And so to your point, I think it's beautiful and a great model for us to understand, even when we think we have some kind of knowledge and some kind of education, to still be authentically curious and invested in the voices of the other brothers around us who may not have as much education as we do, and not doing it like out of pity, right? But doing it because you authentically value what they have to say, even if they're not using the big words and things like that, because sometimes it's these big words that prevent us from being able to authentically connect with our community members, right? Or sometimes sometimes we think we have a proper analysis of something and we bring in our theoretical frameworks or what have you, and we're missing the mark, you know? And so I think that's beautiful. And I think the one thing I'll add is I think we also, knowing that some brothers are maybe apprehensive or maybe scared to talk in public, as a restorative justice practitioner, I learned about um, having consent in doing all things. And so sometimes we have to be, before we ask somebody to speak or put them in the spotlight, have already thought about the opportunity or the event in space ahead of time to ask individuals, are you even interested in speaking or reading or participating in a fashion? Because sometimes our intention may have been in the right place, but the impact, we may have actually unfortunately put somebody in the spotlight and they're not ready to talk. I don't know if you've ever been at like either an award ceremony or something like that, and you're like, all right, give us some words, and the person is like, I didn't prepare anything to write. I'm a preparer. I could talk off the cuff, but I don't really like doing that. And you know that, because even when you wanted to interview me, I would say, what's the questions? What are we talking about? Because I still get nervous just talking off the cuff, and I don't want to misrepresent myself. And so we just always also have to be mindful of, have we checked in with our brothers before we ask them to speak? Because not everybody is ready or willing or interested in doing so.
Yeah, man, that's helpful, and you're right. And I've actually made that mistake several times, uh, and been introduced to the reality that good intentions can still cause harm.
Absolutely.
And, good intentions don't give you the authority to abdicate the responsibility to acknowledge and apologize
Yeah.
when you have caused harm,
Yeah.
right? I think so. I get to hang around some amazing restorative justice practitioners, and so they help me to understand some of those tools. I think I want to jump back to something you said, and then I want to get to this fitness thing. I just want to tap in it real quick.
Yeah.
I actually want to insert an opportunity for further conversation around curiosity and authentic curiosity, and packaging that as a greater asset than knowledge itself. I want to try to broach a conversation around how strong you if you get it, how strong of a position you're actually in when you don't know.
Mm.
And knowing that and finding affirmation and finding confidence
Yeah.
in not knowing.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to kick that around because also in the masculine conversation, men, we are consistently persecuted by the pressure of the position that says you gotta know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being a father of a young child who persistently brings me questions.
Yeah.
And I feel the weight, and it's good intention. I don't want to disappoint you, so I got to come up with an answer. I got to come up with a solution, and so that's a problem for me. And I'm challenged by that even today. So I want to come back to that. Hold on, somebody just came to the door. Let me go let them in. I know who it is, and then we'll conclude right when I get back. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, on second thought, we can get back to fitness. It's actually too good.
Yeah.
I don't need to pressure it. I want to ask you for some closing thoughts. Man, this has been rich, bro. I could have this conversation all day. To conclude what I was saying, there is great self-affirmation in 2 areas, and this is what I want to put in your mind for consideration and to come back to. In the courage to acknowledge that you do not know. And there is great growth and opportunity and strength and even just self-confidence in knowing that you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful thing because the way you laced in authentic curiosity, it might have the potential in most interactions that can be perpetuated as oppressive. It may be the opportunity to flip the script.
Yeah.
To leverage the question, to use Socratic methods. And we could, we got a lot to say about Socrates. We can come back there at another time. But I'm interested in what that conversation would materialize as. And I'm interested in how, if that particular perspective can be offered to people who are walking in territory and in conversations that they don't belong. I'm interested, not belong, that they've never been before. I'm interested in how that would change their posture, and how that would land in their self-image, and how that might impact how they go into community and how they show up, particularly with men.
Yeah.
Really interested in that. We may have to have 2 or more conversations. I dare not take advantage of your time like that, but we just may have to do that on the side. I mean, it's to call you on the phone and be like, bro, we talk about this all right here.
Do it. Yeah.
Related to me. Can you offer some closing thoughts? Maybe say something to the brothers, and then I'll wrap.
About anything in particular, or?
Yeah, in summary, like just what we talked about today. This is a closing thought about what you got from today's conversation.
number one, this may be a little selfish of me, but the first thing I've got is I need to do a better job of being connected to the men that have held me throughout my life. Um, I was talking to a good friend recently about this fitness piece and everything it brings for me. And I was telling her, a shout out to Alicia, one of my best friends. I was telling her, going to the gym has been like therapy for me. She recognized and affirmed what I said, but she said, And Taharka, that's not therapy in a formal sense, right? And I was like, you right. I do need to get into therapy, right? She was like, it could be maybe like therapeutic, make you feel good, or like keep you balanced, but it's not formal therapy. I think what I've got from this conversation is, and I do think that there's things therapeutic about me being connected to brothers, but whenever I connect with you, Brother Charles, um, if I could find a therapist, I would hope there's something like you, because and you've seen me in some of my most challenging moments in my life, especially as a younger man. Um, what I've got from this is men, we don't have a lot of spaces where people are willing to let us be soft. Soft in the sense of not in the sense of like equating that with being a woman or a female, but in terms of like being able to take our guard down and really express our deepest emotions and really be confident that that will not be used against you or devalued or assumptions will be made, but that somebody's really willing to bear witness to the depth of like what you're going through. Like just feeling like somebody really cares about you. And that's not to say that that's not to say sometimes we assume people don't care about us and there are people in our midst caring about us. But it's just to say that what I'm getting from this conversation is that it does feel good to be in deep relationship, authentic community. I don't trust a lot of people, and a lot of people think they know me and they think we're good friends, but I'll be like, I know a lot about your business. You don't really know much about me, right? And I don't really trust you to know much about me. But what I've got from this conversation is that life feels so much better and it feels so much easier, even when it could be chaotic, when you know you have good, well-rounded brothers that you could lean on and talk to. Um, yeah, and so I would say for other brothers, don't necessarily look for yes men in your life. Um, but don't only look for brothers that are going to give you tough love. Try to find brothers in spaces that are going to give you a healthy balance of I'm curious and willing to hear the depth of what you're going through, but I'm still going to hold you accountable to the best visions that you have of yourself. And sometimes I'm going to try to push you past that if I know you could do more. Right. And so that's what I've got from this conversation that, there's the saying, one who finds a wife finds a good thing. And also, I would say, um, for the bulk of your life, number one, everybody not getting married, right? For the bulk of your
Either
life,
should they, by the way. Okay.
right? That's a whole look. We could do we could do, but for more of your life, so often, I think too often when people are talking about relationships, they're talking about romantic relationships. The majority of your life, though, is not going to be about romantic relationships. And the majority of your connections to human beings are not going to be about romantic relationships. And so I think it's just as pressing, if not more important, for brothers to be just as intentional about pursuing romantic relationships as you pursue brotherhood and platonic friendship, you know? And so, yeah, that's what I'll say.
Listen, man. Oh, man. I'm grateful. Thank you for popping on. This is more than I could have imagined, sharing the space with you. And I have so many fond and affirmative things to say to you. I will not extend the time saying it, but I hope that you hear me when I say you know what it is. And the privilege is mine. So I'm super duper fortunate to be able to be in relationship with you the way that I am. Appreciate you affirming me, bro. There is a lot of opportunities for us to connect further so we can continue to share how things continue to evolve. Yeah. And what I have a statement now that I say, if you climb and meet me at the top. And I know you climbing, and climbing takes real effort. And so, and I'll say, I'm so proud of you. Like, I just can't wait to come to the next graduation or stumble into the next occasion. Yeah. And I'm just better for it, man. So let me close this out here real quick. Family, I can't put it to words. Let me just say it this way. You should probably watch this again. You should definitely connect to Taharka Anderson. I mean, look at all his stuff. And I really, really believe that he is not just one to watch, but one to hear, to follow, and to possibly aspire in your own area of mission and assignment to be like. I say that without any hesitation. Do me a favor, man, share this with somebody. Like, this one in particular can change a man's life. And we'll be back. We'll get him back on. But thank you for tapping in. This has been Next Level Conversations with me, Dr. Dorsey, and one of my good friends, Taharka Anderson, the premier men's growth podcast. We'll talk to you soon. All right, family, that's a wrap for this session of Next Level Conversations. But remember, elevation does not stop here. Apply what you've learned, challenge yourself, and keep pushing towards your next level. If this conversation resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, subscribe, stay locked in for the next one. Keep moving, keep growing. And if you're climbing, I'll see you at the top.